It is a brisk day 36 of the Zombie Hunter build. Today what I plan on doing is finishing up the front end, at least as far as mounting this fender on the driver's side and installing the rub rails. So I have to repair some of them and screw them into the sheet metal. When I repaired this fender, you can remember this one was in very rough shape when I ended up repairing it. And what I ended up doing was I plugged in all of the holes that were completely rusted through and rotted out. So I have to re-drill holes into the side of this thing to mount these little plastic pieces so I can screw the actual rub rail into. But we'll get to that. You can see there's plenty more. I have 3 mounted on there, and there should be a lot. So that's what we're doing today. I'll also toy around with the front grille and try to see how I'm going to mount it, adapt it to fit this truck, since it's suited for the 463 models. So when I replaced the sheet metal on here, this was all rusted out. I replaced it with flat sheet metal, so there wasn't any holes there, and I didn't create the holes yet until I know exactly where they need to be placed. So now that I have this mounted, for the most part, I know that I have to drill a hole here. Okay, so I'll remove this again, but what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna mark where I need to make the holes. And that way, that'll allow me to drill a hole and then put a little push plastic piece in there, and then I have a secure place to place my screws to finish the rest of this body panel, or this rub rail. So that's what I have to do with that. This one I believe has all of them, but I didn't take any of them out of the door. And this one I also have to secure the rub rail on here and then determine where I need to make my marks to drill the extra holes. Alright, here's basically what it's going to look like. So I still have to drill a hole here and a hole here in the back where I replaced the metal. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take these all off again and wash them, and then I'm thinking about plasti dipping them, covering them in black plasti dip, and it's either that or painting them. I just don't know how well the paint will hold up. I may try painting them first and then maybe plasti dipping them. I don't know, we'll see. But this is what it looks like. You know, and I don't know if I'm necessarily a huge fan of having those rub rails on the side of the truck, but they do break it up a little bit and make it look more put together. All right, so another setback putting this front end together is this G63, G65 Grill that I'm trying to adapt for this truck. It doesn't want to play nicely with the factory 460, 461 headlight surrounds. Okay, and the issue is, you can see the headlight surround is off by, I don't know, 1.5 centimeters on each side, and that's because of this lip that's here. Okay, so my solution to that would be to cut this lip off, and then that'll allow me to push it in, you know, to the right location. And again, it's not installed, it's just mocked up. You know, I just have it sitting in place, and the headlight surrounds are actually holding it in. But another thing is, the grill extends a lot further than the factory one for the 460s. So, you know, it gives me about 2 centimeters of gap between the headlights around and the front, and I can't have that. That looks awful. So my solution to that, and the only solution I can honestly think of, would be to extend the headlights out. So I have two options to do that. I can create a complete replica of the headlight surrounds with out of fiberglass, and that will allow me to extend them out further and then fill that gap. Or what I just thought of right now is creating a spacer. I don't know how that would turn out, but if I made a spacer, that would allow me to extend it also further. I mean, it would bring the front end, well, either way, it's going to bring the front end out a little bit, but I don't know. That's, you know, 'cause that's unacceptable. That looks terrible. So I'll have to figure out what to do about that. I wonder if there's a way that I could maybe cut this and push it in more. That's another option. You know, I'm trying to play around with this and figure out how I'm going to get this thing to fit. And I could always just go back to the, well, look, there you go. That one went in. If I do that, then it'll fit. Huh. So I'll just pull this in more and cut it, I think. If I cut it here, everything should line up. Makes a lot more sense, actually. And then cut these little, see what doesn't fit here and fit it up. So anyway, this is going to require a lot more playing around with to get to work, obviously. But this actually is a better option, I think. Just cut the plastic, you know? It's gonna be a lot less work. All right, so the idea is I'm gonna cut it along these tape lines first, and then after that, we'll see how it fits. And then if it needs some modification, then I'm just gonna keep on grinding off a little bit or cutting off a little bit of plastic at a time. I don't wanna cut off too much initially. This way I can make sure the fitment's all right, and then you know, if I take off too much, then it's going to make it, you know, I could have gaps and things like that. I don't want it to look crooked or ugly. So we'll see how this goes. I really wish that they made one that didn't need any modifications at all, but you know, for 200 bucks you can't go wrong. It's a lot cheaper than the OEM parts for sure. Alright, so here's the installed G63 grill. It required a little bit of work, a lot of cutting actually. So I had to cut it and shape it here. I'm still probably gonna go over it again with a sander just to make sure everything looks smooth. I use giant self-tapping bolts to put in there, or screws, and got them in place. And it required spacers too. You know, it doesn't fit. So we put what's that, four washers in there, and then the bottom doesn't have any way to connect it, so I just use black zip ties there to connect it. So with all that done, I mean, it's not a perfect fit. I'm probably gonna end up grinding these little pieces off because I don't like how they look. You know, they stick out. So I'll probably grind that down, and it's not completely flush against it. And there's nothing I can do about that. That's just the way it's designed. And then I also required to some cutting, so I cut a little bit around here, and I also cut the corners off of here because these little bumpers here were fouling on it. It's on both sides, but now that's how it looks. So it looks pretty sweet. It looks much better, I think, than the standard grill. You know, now it looks pretty, you know, up to date, a little bit more modernized. All right, now it's just a matter of installing the star. All right, so now I got the star in place. Everything's installed. And like I said, it's not a perfect fit because it's designed for the G63, and they also have different headlight surrounds. So what I probably will likely do is, like, see this little piece sticking out? I'll probably end up grinding that off as well, and just running over the whole thing with a grinder to make sure everything, you know, fits a little bit more cleanly. But that's what we're looking at, and I'm very happy with it. So an updated look for a nearly 40-year-old truck.